Ironclad is it's an action-adventure film set in the 13th century. It's set against the backdrop of the signing of the Magna Carta and King John, and it's basically about the siege of a castle. It's probably best described as a medieval Magnificent Seven or a medieval Seven Samurai. The look and the feel of the film really came at a very early stage in all of my research, and in wanting to try to portray a very realistic, gritty look. I knew that although I was very inspired also by a lot of, the wonderful big medieval epic movies of the 60s and the 70s, movies like El Cid with Charlton Heston, movies like The Warlord, also with Charlton Heston. I wanted Ironclad to be a much more contemporary, modern film, and to have a very gritty, real, brutal look. I mean, the 13th century, what fascinated me about it, not just the main historical events that we see in the film, but what I also found fascinating was just how hard and brutal and tough it really must have been to be in that period. The love affair was always a central part of the story that I wanted to explore, because I felt, otherwise we would end up with a movie that was just about violence and battles and killing and action, and I felt it was important for the film to have something to offset that. So the romance, the love story was always important part of the film, and she really brings the soul. I think, as a character, Isabel brings the soul, the sort of central spirit of the film, which was also very important, to sort of offset all the battle and the fighting and the action with a real heart at the center of it. I feel very, very fortunate and very grateful that we were able to make the film in Wales. As a filmmaker today making a large independent movie, I had often expected that we might end up making this film not in England or Wales, but not in the UK, but in somewhere else, in Hungary or Luxembourg or Germany. And many of those places would have been fine, would have been good. We would have made the film just as well. But what I loved about making the film in Wales was the countryside in Wales, and the weather is amazing. I mean, the countryside really lended itself to the film perfectly. We used a lot of locations in and around the Brecon Beacons, which is a spectacular landscape, a very old looking landscape, and also a lot of the countryside, the rolling hills, the green meadows and pastures and the woodlands of an area called Monmouthshire, which is incredibly beautiful, and I didn't know very well before I made the film and before I went there.